Peace to the family. This is Abdul Ali, candidate for U.S. House District 12 here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's just be real, folks. The Democrats have destroyed our major cities. Their policies have made us less safe, they've given us less economic opportunity, and they've provided less educational opportunities for our children. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I know what it takes to improve these issues. I've got great working relationships already in D.C. I've spent the last 10 years of my life building my political resume so that one of us, somebody who thinks like we do, could get into D.C. and make a difference. I want you to visit aliforcongress.com to find out more about my campaign. The Democrats have already done enough, and now they're putting illegal aliens in front of people like you and me, folks whose ancestors built this country and made it what it is today. So again, I'm asking you to support me in my run for U.S. House District 12 here in North Carolina. You don't have to live in North Carolina to support, because what happens in Congress affects the entire country. So again, it's aliforcongress.com. I hope to have your support. Peace and love, y'all.
Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin the study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thanks in advance. All right. Let's get right into business here. All right. Fiber optics, or optical fibers, are long, thin strands of carefully drawn glass about the diameter of a human hair. These strands are arranged in bundles called fiber optic cables. We rely on them to transmit light signals over long distances. At the transmitting source, the light signals are encoded with data, the same data you see on the screen of a computer. So the fiber transmits data by light to a receiving end where the light signal is decoded as data. Therefore, fiber optics is actually a transmission medium, a pipe to carry signals over long distances at very high speeds. How does light carry knowledge? Light may carry information defined by which frequencies of the light spectrum it has. For example, the color of an object is information carried by light. White light from the sun is actually many different wavelengths combined to create the color white. Okay, I'm going to read that back to you again. I'm going to paraphrase the top, and then I'm going to read the last thing again. You have the technology industry telling you that fiber optics can be used to transmit light long distances, light encoded with data. That gives you that misleads you. Let me say that. It gives you the wrong understanding that light is somehow empty and devoid of information, and it is not. So we read further. Light may carry information defined by which frequencies the light spectrum it has. Light may carry information defined by which frequencies of the light spectrum it has. For example, the color of an object is information carried by light. Okay, let's pay attention to that now. The color of an object is information carried by light. White light from the sun is actually many different wavelengths combined to create the color white. White light from the sun is actually many different wavelengths combined to create the color white. If the color is information, all of the wavelengths together as white light is many different points of information about the object is coming from. We study the sun by studying sunlight. We study the sun by studying sunlight. So there is no such as thing. The wavelengths of light teach us what object it reflected off of, what created this light, what things the light had to go through before reaching us. Now, if we go to the Bible, Job 38, 35 to 36. Job 38, 35 to 36. Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inner parts, and who hath given understanding to the heart? See, this is important to understand because a lot of people are saying that, you know, especially if you listen to Kanye, that there's a particular group of people that are super rich because they own sports and entertainment and music and real estate and blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you that they're super rich because they own a lot of patents. Right? So I just want to briefly, and that's not going to be the conversation today, but I just want to briefly stroll through some points that we have in some of these books that we don't necessarily get to. John 1:5, right? John 1:5. This then is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. Proverbs 4:18. But the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. Philippians 2:15. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. 2 Corinthians 4:6. For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. Psalm 119, 130. The entrance of your words gives light. The entrance of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. Ecclesiastes 8:1. There's nothing better than being wise, knowing how to interpret the meaning of life. Wisdom puts light in the eyes and gives gentleness to words and manners. Ecclesiastes 8:1. There's nothing better than being wise. Nothing. Knowing how to interpret the meaning of life. Wisdom puts light in the eyes and gives gentleness to words and manners. Right? We're going to jump through a couple of these books. Let's go.
Charles get more than that interview. Oh Lord, that's crazy.
I done got 40,000 for an interview.
Damn.
I went to California last year. Right after the BET Awards, man. I was right, man, 40,000. Nigga, I did a 8-hour interview.
Faith and love, love and faith, faith and love, love.
Okay. Hold on. Let's jump over to. All right. So we're going to get out of the God. We're going to get out of the God knowledge. We're going to get out of the God is knowledge cancer book. And we're going to jump over to. We're going to jump over to the PhD book for a second. Right? We're going to jump over to the PhD book. We're going to have us a nice little we're going to have us a nice little Bible study this morning. Because we got some things to discuss. Okay, hold on. All right. The comedic story begins with structuring water. As we detail in the book Osiris, Diabetes, and Respiration, so does the biblical narrative. Right? Okay. All right. So we kind of recap. Right? We start with the waters of noon, and then the mound, blah, blah, blah. This is very crazy for many, but you know in your heart, the human cell. Okay, so Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. I need my hard drive. I need my hard drive. Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin the study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thanks in advance. All right, hold up. Some of these things we may have discussed, but I just want to go through some of these things that we may have not discussed, or that I may have not discussed with you guys. Okay, so here we go. Because with the visual, it makes more sense. Right? So this is what I'm talking about here. This is a radical new way to look at this. Right? This is a radical way to look at this, but it changes the dynamic and things begin to make sense that may have not made sense for so much time, to the point where it forces people to say, "These are miracles," or "This is mythology," or "This is just pure gobbledygook." So this is not to attack anybody's religion. This is to strengthen it. Right? Let us make mankind in our image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. Our research tells us that this is not about people per se. That is the illusion. What it's talking about is the cell line, our advanced cell line, right? Our advanced cell line. Right? Our advanced cell line. Because there's no reflection of a man's body. That's not a real thing, right? But if let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, is talking about the cell line, then everything makes sense. Even what we see in our embryos and our babies, before they're babies, right? So they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. These are all cell lines. Cell lines. Right? So again, these are some radical views. Luke 17. Now, Luke 17, 2021 speaks directly to the point that I'm making here. Luke 17, 2021. And right now we in the PhD book. Right? Everything is biochemistry. Listen. Luke 17, 2021 says, and when he was demanded of the Pharisees, when the kingdom of God should come, he answered them and said, the kingdom of God cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. I want y'all to get this. I want y'all to get this. And I have to challenge you just a little bit. I have to make some challenges. I have to issue some challenges. And I'm not going to judge you for your answer. I just want to challenge you to be on the same side of the coin, right? Because there are people, y'all see my debate with Lord Abba, right? There are people that say that race is a social construct. And the funniest thing is, I have seen the very same people against the idea that sex or gender is a social construct. So what I'm going to say is you cannot have it both ways. Listen to what I'm saying. If you believe that race is a social construct, you also believe that gender is a social construct. You cannot have it both ways. If you believe that gender is a social construct, you believe that race is a social construct. These ideologies came from the same place. And these are not biblical ideas. Today we're doing Bible study. right? That water's bubbling. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about well, I probably won't pull this book back out because I'm excited and I'm waiting for the new Beer and Bitters book, right? But in that book, I'm waiting for a couple of the new books, but in that book, there's a lot of things that we discuss, right? A couple of those things are obviously inspired by Dr. Reggie. The valedictorian of the Geek Squad himself, who says, EnQi, we don't want to defend some of the crazy things that are in the medical papyri, do we, EnQi? EnQi, do we? Listen, this is the fall of Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Leonard Jeffries. This is the fall of the old Kemetic scholarship. Reggie represents the fall, the destruction of their legacy. Right? Because you're supposed to uphold whatever your thing is, you're supposed to hold that, period, regardless to what. That's how it go. You're supposed to hold that. If you represent the LA Lakers, you a LA Laker till to the bell ring. You know what I'm saying? You got to go all the way in with that. You know, when you're on the battlefield, you in your you get buried in your uniform. Right? So you're supposed to hold that line. And do whatever study is necessary. I don't have a problem with the medical papyri, even the crazy, even the crazy formulas, because I know what he's talking about is feces. Feces is all throughout the medical papyri. It's feces all over the place. In some of them, most of the medical papyri is feces everywhere, right? But so is it in medicine today. So why wouldn't it be there if it's here? And why is it any more distasteful or whatever here than there? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's just different wording. Today we talk about probiotics, fecal transplants. Today we say probiotics and fecal transplants. Back then they said poop. It's the same thing though. It's the living bacteria, which is a large part of the dust of the ground. We have to accept these. We have to accept these things, not piecemeal. It has to be part and parcel. We have to accept the whole ideology behind our claims, behind our philosophies, behind our religious convictions, right? We have to accept the whole thing. Or if we don't, we should get out of there. Get out of there. You have that option. You say, "Oh, if I pick a religion, or if I'm religious, I don't have to believe everything in my religion." Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Or you're not of that creed. You cannot be a Christian and not practice Christian values and morals and dogma, etc., etc. That is a part of the banner. You got to hold that up. When it looks good, you shine. When it looks bad, you rusty. That you got to wear that. So we got to understand when it says God formed man of the dust of the ground, that includes everything that's in the ground. That's why there's particular verses that talks about the quality of God loved that soil because it was gold and that dirt and there's a lot of different things that we need to understand. Most of our resources come out of the ground. And that's the blueprint of staying healthy. Right? There's a lot of things here that we have to deal with and pick apart. If we're talking about the dust of the ground, we're talking about the minerals, fulvic acid, humic acid, sure, but we're also talking about what? The recycling of feces, probiotics, bacteria, fungus, yeast. Breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. There's a whole aspect to the Kemetic culture, and we talk about it we talk about it a good bit we talk about it in this book. We open the doorway to the conversation in this book, but I think we really, really went into it in the Osiris Diabetes and Respiration book. But we're talking about breath and the nose, right? There's quite a few of these books where we're talking about breathing, right? But the nose specifically. Okay. We're having technical difficulties. We all good, I think. Right? But the nose had a very high value and status in Kemet, right? I want to read you something, right? The Adventures of Senahat. The main character writes this to King Kepra Ka-Ra. Thou, the good God, Lord of both lands, loved of Ra, favorite of Mentu, the Lord of Thebes and of Amen, Lord of thrones of the lands, of Sebek, Ra, Horus, Hathor, Atmu, and of his fellow gods of Sapdu, Nephabu, Simsetu, Horus, Lord of the East, and of the royal Uraeus, right? The Uraeus, the nigger, which rules on thy head, of the chief gods of the waters, of men, Horus of the desert, Urit, mistress of Punt, Nut, Hanket, Ra, all the gods of the land of Egypt, and of the isles of the sea. May they give life and peace to thy nostril. May they load thee with their gifts. May they give to thee eternity without end, everlastingness without bound. These are the missing verses that are not being discussed in Kemetic scholarship, because these apply specifically to your anatomy and biochemistry. These are being overlooked because the people that are studying, that are teaching, they have no idea what any of this means. Let's go again. O thou who art beloved of Ra, Horus, and Hathor, Mentu, Lord of Thebes, desires that thy august nostril should live forever. That your nostril should live forever? In another scene, the god king's children say, may the goddess Nub give life to thy nostril. I'm going to read that again. May the goddess Nub give life to thy nostril. May the mistress of the stars favor thee. And when thou hast sailest south and north. If we go to, it's a few more. The text in the funeral chamber, right? Listen to this speech of Isis. Isis said, I have come to be a protector unto thee. I waft unto thee air for thy nostrils. And the north wind which cometh forth from God, Tim, unto thy nose. I have made whole for thee thy windpipe. Your nose is what builds genetic material. Horizontal gene transfer happens via the nose. The initiation of your immune system happens via the nose. There's a lot more importance to your nose than just like, you know, and I'm just pointing out these things because it's important in terms of having context. We say the Bible comes from Kemetic roots or is directly copied. It stands to reason that some of these scientific things that we find in the Bible are going to also be echoed. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just showing you. Now, like I said, we're not going to have the beer and bitters conversation today. That's coming. Right? And there's a bunch more of these. Right? So you can get the PhD book. And we begin the conversation. Not begin, we continue the conversation. Right? We continue that conversation on respiration. But today I want to hop through and go straight to right. All right. Oh no, we can't skip that. We cannot skip that. All right, hold on. Let's go to Genesis, first chapter. Let's go to Genesis, first chapter. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. This is the signature of surface tension. I want you to understand this is surface tension. This is surface tension. And this only makes sense if God is light. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. This is building surface tension. Surface tension is the initiation of structure in the water. Viscosity is the resistance of a liquid to flowing. Water has a very low viscosity because it flows with ease. Sugar adds viscosity to water. Sugar stops the water's ability to flow. Sugar breaks down the water's ability to form the surface tension that's required for your tissues, right? At 4 grams of glucose, you maintain the ability to have a decent blood flow. Once you go beyond that, then you start to get crazy, right? You start to get crazy. Now, water molecules are very small and do not stick to each other. This gives them a low viscosity. This is described as intermolecular force, right? How much the molecules of a liquid stick together. Mind you, we inside the PhD book. Now you can look up intermolecular forces. This is based on how much the molecules of a liquid stick to each other. The more they stick to each other, the slower the flow of the liquid is. You can think of this as a type of magnetism or attraction between the water molecules. The higher the attraction, the more viscous. The higher the viscosity, the slower the liquid flows. If water had a high viscosity, life would not exist on this planet. This is very important. I want to point out some science. That's why we're going to jump through the Bible old school today, right? This is a minister morning for the ministry. This is a minister morning for the ministry. The flow of a liquid is literally about how easy it is for one molecule to move past another. In the hood, we call this crabs in the barrel syndrome, right? Nobody wants you to pass by them. So you get a lot of hate. You get a lot of hate, right? They want to slow down your momentum. right? This is literally high viscosity. That's high viscosity. A lot of hate. A lot of pulling at your ankle when they see you moving by, right? Each molecule does its best to grab and hold on to the next molecule, stopping it from going forward, right? I want to show you something. Let's take a look at something here. Okay. Job 38:30. The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Okay, so we just went over Genesis, right? Genesis 1 verse 2 said, the earth was void and darkness was over the face of the deep, right? Darkness was over the face of the deep. Now here it says the waters are hid as with a stone and the face of the deep is frozen, right? This is what you're looking at when you're looking at frozen water. This hexagonal structure right here. This is what you're looking at. When water's frozen, you see the structure of water. This is right here in the Bible. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, it says the earth was without form and void and darkness was over the face of the deep. Right here in Job 38:30, it shows you it gives you the face of the deep. Every living cell in every single living creature is only possible because of this structuring process. Right? So we listen, we just cruising by. Oh wait, you're not looking at what I'm looking at. I'm sorry. Hold on. My bad. My bad. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. This is what they're referring to in our research, this is what they're referring to in Job 38:30, right? Ice is structured. Ice is structured. Right? This is why we get to see these pictures like this. Right? Ice is structured water. This is why we get to see these. All of these pictures, right? All of these pictures here. This is that structure that's built on that hexagonal lattice. This is what it's talking about. Job 38:30. So Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 talks about the face of the deep, and then 38:30 in Job gives you exactly what, so you understand this chemistry. This is chemistry. This is science. Right? Okay, let's look at something else. I know some of this is just going to be, plain old troublemaking. I know people going to just feel like I'm just picking trouble in the Bible, but we're not. We want to look at some things. We want to look at some things that I may not have had time to pull out because we had specific points that we were discussing, but I have to go back through some of these books and point out just a couple of things, right? Exodus 34, 6 and 7. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands. Hold on, let me make sure that this is, okay, yeah. Forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and fourth generation. Now, this is a Bible verse or set of verses, particularly verse 7 anyway, that people run from, like Reggie running from the discussion of poop in the medical papyrus, right? People rather this verse not be here. But for me, these are some of the better verses in the Bible. This is the groundbreaking. These are the groundbreaking verses right here, right? What is it talking about? Well, the first thing you got to understand is that sin is basically, to simplify sin, it means to go against life, to go against creation. So this may not make sense because you say the children are innocent. Why would you punish the children, especially generation after generation after generation? That don't make sense, to punish children that don't even know what their great-great-great-grandfather may have done. It only makes sense. It only makes sense if we understand epigenetics. This only makes sense if this becomes a conversation about science once again. It only makes sense if this becomes a conversation about epigenetics. Because you're going to pass these genes down. Epigenetics is the study of how your behavior and environment cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and do not change your DNA sequence, but they can change how your body reads a DNA sequence. These are inheritable. These are inheritable. Let me see what I want to do. Now, mind you, we still in the PhD book. Okay, we talking about flooding the Nile. Now, here is a very important piece of this conversation, right? And we kind of go through this article because it's very important in terms of the new information that is coming to the forefront, that destroys this idea, this out of Africa theory, or the fact that everybody on earth, all humans, came from one human, or that creation happened in one place only and nowhere else, right? Phosphate is crucial for the origin of life because it is ubiquitous in key biomolecules. A major issue is that prebiotic synthesis use concentrated phosphate to incorporate phosphate into biomolecules. A major issue is that prebiotic syntheses use concentrated phosphate to incorporate phosphate into biomolecules, whereas natural waters are generally phosphate poor because phosphate reacts with calcium to form low solubility apatite crystals, or minerals rather, right? Here we show how that carbon-rich lake can concentrate phosphate to above 1 molar levels by locking up calcium in carbonate minerals, which prevents phosphate removal by apatite precipitation. I know this sounds sciencey, just bear with me, because not only is it discussing how life can originate in phosphate and carbon-rich water, lakes, which we have all across the equatorial region, as well as some of these frozen spots where today we get artesian water from. So we have spots where life could have originated around the equator. We have spots where life could originate in polar regions. This is in scientific journals. Don't let nobody tell you this is not scientific, right? And if you listen, it's giving you the recipe for bone, right? And bone is where the rest of your body, bone is the protective mechanism for your stem cells, right? When you're forming, the 3 layers of flesh is all stem cells, right? You come from one stem cell. That one stem cell multiplies itself, then separates itself into 3 layers, right? And then from there starts forming up the body. And then as everything gets formed, those original stem cells get locked away in bone to protect them, right? They get locked away in bone to protect them. Phosphate-rich lakes may have preferentially formed on the prebiotic earth because carbonic acid weathering under CO2-rich atmospheres and the absence of microbial phosphate consumption. This specifically points to an origin of life in carbon-rich lakes and so defines aqueous conditions that prebiotic chemists should consider. Phosphate is central to the origin of life because it is a key component of nucleotides in genetic molecules. Phospholipid cell membranes and energy transfer molecules such as adenosine triphosphate to incorporate phosphate into biomolecules. Now, in Kemet, you have a bunch of different stories about this, right? You have one that says the tears of Re formed people, right, from plasma. Then you have Osiris, the father of Kemetic humanity, coming from the Nile, right? And all the rest of the stories about the life coming from the Nile and blah, 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 right? So life coming out of the water is, you know, the Bible. Separate the waters above the waters below. Like life coming out of the waters is a crucial piece to understanding science, right? That's the beginning to all fact of biochemistry. You cannot have you can't discuss biochemistry if you don't start with water. You start with water, you're on the right track. You don't start with water, you're somewhere else with it, right? So we go through this article anyway. We go through this article. And I'm not going to bore you all with all the scientific details, but you can do that yourself at your own speed. Not bore yourself, but you can go through the details. Right? Okay. The battery and the antenna, Eve, the river atom, blah, 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 blah. We had to go back to Genesis. We get a firm grip, like our likeness. Okay, hold on. Let's go back over here and go back to where we was at in Genesis. Caleb.
What's up?
Take kosher. Let us make man in our image and our likeness so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, the wild animals, and over all of the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Science has confirmed this. The single cells filled the earth and still to this day dominate. Even in and on your body, these single cells, you carry more bacteria. You have more bacterial cells right now than you have your quote unquote human cells. And that's without us counting mitochondria. If we count mitochondria, then it's done. Then it's done. Because remember, mitochondria comes from this same pool of single cell organisms. We captured mitochondria in our cells somewhere along the line. Somewhere along the line. But remember, mitochondria is a separate organism with a separate whole separate DNA and replication and blah, 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 blah. Right? So if we count that, it's well over 10 to 1 in terms of your cells to these single cells. So single cells still dominate life on this planet. Most of your mitochondria is in your heart and your brain. Right? Listen to this. The average cell in your body has 2,000 mitochondria in it. 2,000. That's a lot. For a little tiny cell that we can't even see with our eyes, to have 2,000 of anything in it is a lot. Right? Where the hell is the room at? Right? But 2,000 on average. If you're an athlete, is way more. If you're an athlete or somebody that exercises, way more. You might have 3,000 mitochondria in each cell. Right? But in your heart and your brain, you literally have 2 to 3 million mitochondria per cell. One cell, 2 million mitochondria. So your body is dominated by these single, and that's not even to count the actual microbiome, right? The bacteria that lines the inside of the body, and then to add on the bacteria that lines the outside of the body. This planet is still subdued and dominated by single cell lines. Right? All right, hold on. So we're going to jump. Let's see this here. We're about to make a jump. We're going to make a jump because I want to get over to this book that's supposed to be infallible. I want to show y'all something. And I was talking to a brother and they said that this is the authority of the Bible. The blue book, the blue Bible book. We're going to have to go into that book real quick. The blue letter Bible. We have to deal with something that needs to be corrected there. We got to go to the blue letter Bible. The blue letter Bible is incorrect about something, and it's important for our conversation and our studies. Right? So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, you could put your PhD book down. If you have the heart book, pull out your heart book. Pull out your heart book. you have your heart book, pull out your heart book. We're going to jump around in the heart book real quick. Genesis 3:21, the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife. Let us look at this. Let me see how I can pull this up for you. All right. So, scholars first became, no, that's not what I want to show you. Right. Okay, hold on. The ability to fully experience light is the greatest gift life has to offer and is referenced in the biblical text but completely avoided like the plague for obvious reasons. Genesis 3:21, the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. In Hebrew, the Bible explains that Adam and Eve were kicked out of their habitat for the sin of coming of age, right? Of learning the knowledge of good and evil, right? Now, many of you will recognize instantly the word kat, meaning body or flesh without the breath of life in it or the active electric current, blah, 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 right? The Hebrew word for light and skin is the same, or, right? It shares a root. Now, you can say this is coincidence or stretching if you want, but we just want to lay this out for you and give you this, right? Light, the value of this word, right? And skin, the value of this word. The only difference is 69. This is some of the things that you do to compare the numerical values of these terms. I know that people are not used to looking at the Bible as a math book or looking at the words and their numerical values, but we have to do that from time to time to get some other ideas that may be hidden in there. Right? So it's very interesting that the difference between light and skin is samic. And that samic tet means the snake. Right? So that might be too Kabbalistic That might be too Kabbalistic for a Sunday morning. That might be too Kabbalistic for a Sunday morning. But let me just say this. Hold on, let me just say this. I do know that the numerical value for the word Kabbalah is 137, right? Listen, the value of the word literally Kabbalah is 137. The fine structure constant number, the number that defines how light interacts with matter. Literally, that's what Kabbalah. Forget studying the Kabbalah. Look, niggas be getting too deep sometimes. If you talk to somebody that studies the Kabbalah, right? They're going to tell you that the Kabbalah is about the spheres of light, and the 32 paths connect the spheres of light, and you right? Listen, they're going to tell you about all these spheres of light and how the Kabbalah is basically breaking down the science of how light turns into man, and how light becomes flesh, and this, and they're going to give you a whole complicated spiel. Right? That's not even required, because all of that is a breakdown of the name. Literally, Kabbalah, the value, if you understand that all these Hebrew words have a numerical value, Kabbalah, the value of it is 137. That's not going to jump out in your mind if you don't have this scientific part. If you don't know that the Great Pyramid is 137 meters high, right? It clicks. Oh, wait a minute. The pyramid is 137 meters. Chlorophyll has 137 atoms. The Kabbalah, 137. Fine structure constant. Okay, so you got to know, you don't see with your eyes or hear with your ears. You see and you hear with your mind. If you don't know something, you can't see it until somebody has to show you. Someone has to initiate you, right? Initiate specific thought patterns so you can see. Once you know what the fine structure constant is, that tells you everything about the Kabbalah. When you learn Kabbalah is 137, you go, oh, yeah, okay. So yeah, fine. Oh, okay. This is about how light interacts with matter. Now you could listen to that from a scientist, right? A scientist can tell you what the fine structure constant is, and they're going to give you a long, deep breakdown. A Kabbalist, a person that studies Kabbalah, if you ask them about Kabbalah, they're going to give you a long, deep breakdown. They're going to use totally different language to try to explain to you the exact same phenomena. And this is what I try to impart to people. Fine structure constant, how light interacts with flesh, Kabbalah, how light, right? All right. Should we get into this dietary law thing? Should we go into the dietary law thing? Yeah, let's go into the dietary law thing real quick. Let me just find that page for y'all. Oh man, they're not on the same page. All right, so at the bottom of this page, down here, you see the unclean animals. Right? At the bottom of the page, you see the unclean animals. And then at the top of the next page, you see the clean animals. Right? Now, this was a study done by David Israel Mock, pharmacologist and doctor of Hebrew literature. David Mock actually went and tested all of these animals. Right? So when you see these numbers are not just happenstance, right? We're dealing with actual science. A Bible scholar and scientist went to test and see if the unclean animals was actually unclean, to see if the clean animals were actually clean. Because a part of our skin, a part of our flesh, right? So you have visceral fat, which is the fat around your organs, and then you have subcutaneous fat, which is the fat around your skin. Our body stores germs, toxins, and all that in the fat. So you can test the subcutaneous fat and the skin and see how toxic a particular type of flesh would be for you to eat it. You don't have to accept these things just off of you don't have to, there's science in these books that you can test this stuff out. Again, this is why I need y'all to hit the Cash App. Wait a minute. I need y'all to stop what y'all doing and hit the Cash App. Right? There's no way Charleston White gets $40,000 for a video. And I might get $7. I might get 3 people to send me $2. That's the information has to have a higher value. Come on, people. You have to support the cause so we can keep doing this.
Charleston get more than that interview. Oh Lord, that's crazy.
Home, I done got 40,000 for an interview.
Damn.
I went to California last year. Right after the BET Awards, man. I was 40,000. Nigga, I did a 8-hour interview.
Faith and love, love and faith, faith and love, love.
Okay, look. I appreciate y'all who's sending in the Cash Apps to keep this thing going. Listen, when they check the unclean animals, look at the numbers. From 40% to 54%. From 40% to 54%. Actually, red-tailed hawks have 36%. Now, these are scavengers. I think your owl is at the top with 62%. Now, look at these numbers of the clean animals. Look at the clean animals. Look at the deer and the duck and the sea bass. And this is modern time. This is modern time. Again, we hear in the heart book, in the healthy heart book, right? So this scriptural accuracy it should be scary. It should be scary how accurate this stuff is. See, it's enough science. It's enough science to give benefit of the doubt. Right? And change maybe some of the things that we've been thinking about. Right? Change some of the long held views that we may have had. Right? We may have had some views that may be outdated, like the flood destroying all life on earth. We know that that's not possible. We know that's not possible. But if we put that into the context of creation, right? If we put the flood and the story around the flood into the context of creation, making a more complex organism, right? Starting with single cells. Then you got the little creatures, right? Then you got the larger creatures. You're going up in complexity. Now, here's the thing that people may not have noticed, some did, but when the dietary regimen changes, the ages drop. So when you read the Bible, you got basically functional immortality. Folks is 1,000 years old till something happened to them. Folks 1,000 years old till something happened to them. Then you have this flood situation, and afterwards, folks is living 100 years, 120 years, right? 120 kicks in. That 120 kick in, right? What you actually having is a change in immortality, right? Because immortality is really about a comparative thing, living long, to a bacteria, you're immortal, right? Because a bacteria lives, these things have a very short lifespan. So think about if somebody's lifespan is a matter of days and your lifespan is years. Their kids, they keep on dying and having kids. Like, so if they had a story written about you, right? Say the first person wrote a story about you and then they died and their kids, you was here for their kids and then they died and the grandkids and so on, 100 generations and you still alive. They would believe that you're immortal because your lifespan compared to their lifespan is insane. Right? But you wouldn't feel that because your lifespan feels the same in your mind as theirs feels to them because time is relative. So what we have is a transfer of immunity from an imperfect species to a more perfected species. Imperfect to a more perfect. And what do I mean by that is functional immunity for the one was not for the species. Horizontal gene transfer is what perfected the species. Horizontal gene transfer is written into the Bible. We're going to get, well, if we have time, but it's in the Bible. And horizontal gene transfer is what allows for shorter lifespans individually, but longer life for the species going forward. Horizontal gene transfer gives shorter lifespans individually, but longer lifespan for the species. Whereas before, the species was on a crash course to extinction. Horizontal gene transfer is what protects us from extinction. So a meteor could hit the planet and we could go extinct like that, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like some old wild blow up the whole planet kind of thing. Actually, that still wouldn't make us go extinct, believe it or not. Even if every human was killed at the same time, we still wouldn't go extinct as long as the planet is here. That's the beauty of horizontal gene transfer. Listen to what I'm explaining to you. I know it sounds crazy early in the morning, but horizontal gene transfer, basically, as long as the planet is here, we would never go anywhere. We would be alive as long as this planet is here. And then even if the planet was to explode, as long as rocks from our planet land in some other planet, we'll come back again. Resurrect through the birth of my seeds and live again. Yeah. That's what horizontal gene transfer allows for, right? To live in the air, right? Live in the air, right? That's why you have an heir to the throne. But seriously, we live in the air. This is the dead rising up. You know what I'm saying? Like this is horizontal gene transfer. Put a functional end to individuals, right? And unlocked the genetic code so that all of the creatures, all of the single cell lines that develop share genetic information. This is why you have this. There's no other way to explain this. Look, let me show you. There's no other way to explain this. Your eyes are not deceiving you. There's no other way to explain that. We all share genetic information. That's why they tell you, oh, a human has 90% the same DNA as a worm, or 98% the same as a monkey, and this and that. Like, that doesn't mean anything. That's a result of horizontal gene transfer. But that doesn't mean we're the same species because we share DNA. Like, that doesn't make, that's not, we have to revisit some things, relook at some things, right? But horizontal gene transfer is the mechanism that allows for the species to be immortal. Horizontal gene transfer. I got to keep saying it so it stick in your mind. That's why you got to get these books. Horizontal gene transfer is what gives the species functional immunity. That's why genetic diversity is important. Matter of fact, let's go back over here and let me pull up something. Okay. Now, transposable elements. Right? This is how we get all of these quote unquote viral strands of DNA. You see, Researchers found that stretches of viral DNA long embedded in the human genome can produce proteins that help block infections by viruses. Right? Here's the thing, viral DNA, right? Viral DNA. Horizontal gene transfer is how all of these different types of DNA become a working part of your DNA. And the whole purpose of that, again, is immunity of or immortality of the species. Right? So when Charles Darwin and them came up with their racist machinations of the mind and, you know, their evolution theory and all of this foolishness to justify racism and all this other kind of stuff, right? That was more religious. That was like racist religion. That was the racist religion. Charles Darwin theory of evolution is the racist religion. Put it like that, because there's no science behind that. In order for an organism to upgrade its physical characteristics, it has to have information in order to build a new part, right? Like a scale cannot become, like a scale of a snake cannot become a feather without new information, because the DNA has to now have new information about A, how to build a feather, B, how to use a feather. Right? That information has to come from somewhere. So now we know there are two sources of information. A, we have cosmic rays coming in, right, that are changing parts of the code, but also we're sharing genetic information two ways. You have vertical, which is father and mother passing on genetic information from all of the previous generations of people before them. Then you have horizontal gene transfer, where you're getting to absorb and be exposed to every type of DNA and RNA in the environment. Now, if your immune system is functioning, the exposure to this viral DNA and RNA should not make you sick, right? Yours should be strong enough to put any little viral, any other little strands of RNA and DNA in its place. But every so often, one tries to take over, right? You get something to try to take over your body right now, as opposed to fitting in and being a part of the DNA and, when it's needed, pop out. It'll come and try to take over all of your cells right now. And then, you got to fight and inflammation and da-da-da-da-da. You got a flu or whatever the symptomology is of. But that's what's actually happening. The virus or the RNA is inside your body trying to take over all your cells at once, right? But this is important. This is an important switch up. The development of horizontal gene transfer, immortality of the species. The species all shares genetic information so that you can make real-time changes to your environment. So as the dominant species, we have the ability to get genetic information from all of these creatures and incorporate them to build immunity, and not only immunity through our flesh, but through our mind, right? In the new book, we're going to talk a lot about that. You got some nerve, and in the You Got Some Nerve book, we're going to talk about that. The changes in the mind or the building up of the brain and the heart reflect changes in the physiology right? So this is why you think about it like a gorilla, right? Because you still got these goofballs thinking that we the same as gorilla. A gorilla cannot pick up an ink pen and sign his name in script. A gorilla cannot pick up your cell phone, your iPhone, and operate your iPhone, and send out like a text blast, like, because the gorilla's so strong, the way the muscles are designed, it's going to smash up your, it doesn't have the fine motor skills because of the way the musculature is designed. That's based on how the brain and spine is designed. That's based on mitochondria distribution, right? All these things are different. Now we do, like I said, at the center of horizontal gene transfer, we get to share, right? We get to share and incorporate. Anyway. All right, let me see what we're doing here. What we doing? We reminding folks to hit the Cash App, right? That's what we're doing. We reminding folks to hit the Cash App.
Charles get more than that interview? Oh, Lord, that's crazy.
I done got 40,000 for an interview.
Damn.
I went to California last year. Right after the BET Awards, man. I was 40,000. Nigga, I did a 8-hour interview.
Faith and love, love and faith, faith and love, love.
All right, hold on. Let's jump around. Let's go to Genesis 9. Let's challenge. And God said, "This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I set my bow in the cloud, and it should be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth." So what are we talking about? First things first. We immediately got to go Roy G. Biv. What is Roy G. Biv? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv is the mnemonic you learn in elementary school to remember the visible light spectrum. So remember, the light spectrum is huge, but the visible light spectrum is tiny, right? That's from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Now, because of our brains, and we've been able to find out how large the light spectrum really is, infinite, right? We look at the visible spectrum as tiny, which in comparison it is. But the thing is, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. Other animals don't have the ability to see that rainbow. That rainbow really is something special. The ability for us to see that visible light is actually a special thing. Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin the study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thanks in advance. So this is what I'm saying. Not only is that to be able to interpret that light a special thing, right? It speaks directly to what? Another special physical trait, which is the pigments that allow us to be able to convert that light into information. God is light. Light is knowledge. This is how we started the show. Right? So I just want to point out some of, like I said, and this is the upgrade. This is the upgrade that came from, this is post-flood. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. It didn't destroy all life the first time. Remember, we discussed that. A flood does not destroy single cells. It doesn't destroy the DNA, it doesn't destroy the RNA, it doesn't destroy single cells or bacteria. So all the original single cells were unharmed by a flood, right? So the actual promise, like I said, was functional immunity, right? Even today, we complain about our 70-year lifespan, which is only, because we can still push 100, 140, right? We can still push 100, 140. But the idea is exponential growth, right? Exponential growth would have caused extinction. If every single person lived to be 1,000, if every person lived to be 1,000, how many people would be on Earth right now? Think about this. Let's go back to the time of the pyramid builders. If every person from that time period till today lived 1,000 years, we wouldn't even have a planet right now. We would have been extinct. We would have been extinct. So changes had to be made. Changes had to be made in lifespan and how genetic material is shared. So that's what this is. Right? How many people was on Noah's boat? What's the comedic story? The comedic story is what? 4 sets of twins, right? Eight people, 4 sets of twins. How many people was on Noah's boat? 8 people. Huh? The comedic story says 4 sets of twins created life. The story of Noah says 8 people. When do you get your circumcision? You're supposed to get the circumcision on the 8th day. Right? On the 8th day. And what happens on that day? On the 8th day, the vitamin K levels spike. Now, you got to ask yourself, if there was no anatomical science back then, is that a coincidence? Because there's a lot of coincidences. Let me just say this. If you're of the impression that they didn't know any science back then, right? There's a lot of coincidences you have to account for. Look, there's a lot of coincidences you have to account for. Hold on. There's a lot of coincidences you have to account for. Look at this. There's a lot of coincidences you have to account for. So how did they know this? And don't tell me no trial and error. There's no way to trial and error something that you don't even know exists. So if you don't even know vitamin K exists, there's no way to do trial and error and say, oh yeah, on the 8th day. I'm just saying. Right? I'm just saying. Ooh, how about this? How about this? Hold on. Let's go over here for a second. And it came to pass when he made mention of the ark of God that he fell off the sea backwards and his neck brake and he died. His neck broke and he died. Now that may seem simple for y'all, but if there's no understanding of anatomy, right? If there's no understanding of anatomy, And the idea is that you're just a spiritual being created by God. What is this verse doing here? What is that doing there? That is not supposed to be there. Because your arm can break and you don't die. And if these are just if these are just some superstitious, goofy people that don't really know, let's do this. Right? Let's go here. I'm just showing you some signs over here. You know, people like to argue about this stuff, but some of this stuff, I mean, how many coincidences? Like, how much coincidences we allowed to have? And behold, men brought in a man which was taken with palsy. And they sought means to bring him in and to lay him before him. And when they could not find by what way they might bring him in because of the multitude, they went upon the housetop and let them down through the tiling with his couch into the midst before Jesus. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, Man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answered, saying unto them, What reason in your hearts? Whether it's easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven, or to say, Rise up and walk. But that ye may know the Son of Man hath power upon earth to forgive sins. I say unto thee, Arise and take upon thy couch and go into thine house. And immediately he rose up before them and took where he lay and departed to his own house, glorifying God. Now, again, if we realize, or if we take into account that Jesus is light, right? If we take into account that Jesus is light, there is a possible, if you are more comfortable with the miracles, it's fine. I'm not taking the miracles away. I don't want to take the miracles away. I don't intend to take that away, but there is scientific possibilities and plausibilities, right? We don't want to take away miracles. Because to me, it's a larger miracle for this type of understanding, right? To have existed. But if we look at this, and this was big, right? If we look at this guy, right? This right here is a bacteria, a single cell organism, right? Now, you may not know this name offhand, right? But I guarantee you know the nickname. I know you know the nickname, right? This is the nickname. That's the nickname. Syphilis. Syphilis. Right? And syphilis syphilis lives at the same pH as your blood. Your blood wants to be right in that same range. That's what makes this particular bacteria so dangerous. Your blood is the ideal place for it to grow. Your body is a great ideal fertile place for syphilis. Right? But the science is that this bacteria is killed by sunlight. So if, like the Bible says, Jesus is the light, and we know that bacteria do not have these light absorbing proteins, this is why they die in the light. Right? So I don't want to exhibit avarice and hubris and that's not what we're trying to do. Right? But we do have to take a look at a couple of things. Right? Last but not least. I ain't gonna say last but not least because I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Listen, you guys are gonna get the book, right? The Heart book. Actually, we done went through 3 books. We went through the PhD book. We started off in the God is Knowledge book, right? But and I'm skipping around. Let's go here. Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford. Even if that's the algorithm. All right. Okay. Let's hop on over to Exodus. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were going forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. There Israel encamped before the mountain. While Moses went up to God, the Lord called out to him out of the mountain, saying, thus. Now, hold on. Before we even go any further, right? In Numbers chapter 2, verse 9, the Bible tells us All that were numbered in the camp of Judah were 100,000, 80,000, 6,400 throughout their armies. These shall first set forth. Now, this is important because that is the speed of light. So you got to ask, this is another one of those coincidences. Why does the Bible in Numbers chapter 2, verse 9 say that the tribe of Judah is 186,400 strong? You cannot randomly pull out that number. 186,400 is a super specific number. And that's not Kabbalah, that's in the Bible. Now we're not dealing with Kabbalah right now. We talking about in the Bible. Numbers chapter 2, verse 9. It says all that were numbered in the camp of Judah were 100,000, 80,000, 6,400. 80. A score is 20. 80 means 80. Okay, just so you know, right? So 180,000 and 6,000. That's 186,400. So these are very specific references to light and the speed of light. These are coincidences, right? So listen to what I'm saying. There's only one or two ways to look at this. You have to go, they knew. You have to say that they knew. Or you have to just say, okay, this is myth, it's a miracle, it's amazing, man. How did they came up with that number, Or maybe this is real people and literally somebody did a head count and they literally counted 186,000 niggas. A person literally did a head count and counted 186,000 niggas. Just saying. Right? I'm just saying. Some of these coincidences, see, I don't believe in coincidence, so my mind might function different than yours. Right? My mind might function different. All right. On the third day, on the third new moon, after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. There Israel encamped before the mountain. Right? That's why I wanted to just, because that's talking about light and this encampment. So anyway. There Israel encamped before the mountain while Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Right? Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and sat before them. All these words the Lord had commanded him. Right? Now, many people attribute this, you know, to Haitians. When you talk about the tribes, right? The Haitian tribe is the tribe that they attribute to being the tribe of Levi, or the priestly class. Let's take a look at verse 4. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Right? So here's the thing. Right? In order to really make sense out of this, we need to see, because unless we believe, that people really got on top of eagles' backs and flew, unless we believe that these people got on eagles' backs and flew, then we need to probably dig in a little bit deeper to find out what could be being discussed right here, right? Now, here's where we go over here to the Blue Letter Bible. Let's go to the Blue Letter Bible, right? Because this here is supposed to be the authority on the Bible. Right? Because you got to say to yourself, we did go over the unclean and the clean animals, and eagles are definitely unclean. So eagles, not only are they unclean, but eagles eat other animals. So we got to figure out what exactly is going on here. Right? But let's go here. Let's see what the Blue Letter Bible said. We type in eagles. All right, so you get to pulling up. It ain't giving us nothing but verses right here. Right? But let's click on something. Does it give us anything more? Okay, it's giving us the Hebrew. View the desktop site. Are we not viewing the desktop site? Let's see if we can get some more information this way. Ravenous bird is a symbol of those nations whom God employs and sends forth to do work of destruction, sweeping away whatever is decaying and putrescent. It is said that the eagle sheds his feathers in the beginning of spring, with fresh plumage assumes the appearance of youth. To this allusion made in Psalms and Isaiah, God's care of his people is likened to that of an eagle in training its young to fly. An interesting illustration is thus recorded. I once saw a very interesting sight above the crags of Ben Nevis, 2-parent eagles were teaching their offspring. Okay, so it goes into this whole conversation about eagles, right? And we don't really need to read all of it. And I'm going to show you why in a second, right? I'm going to show you why in a second, right? It's going to detail all of these things about the eagle. And yet the problem is the eagle is really the falcon. And I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say that because I wanted it to be that way, but we didn't go that way. The eagle of the Bible is actually a vulture. Listen, the eagle in the Bible is actually a vulture. So the Blue Letter Bible talks about the eagle being the fastest bird and a couple other things that are just incorrect. And this is why. None of the narratives are going to be put in place properly until you realize that the Bible is actually talking about vultures. Right? The Bible is actually talking about vultures. And here's why that's important. Now, mind you, I'm not making this up because you see where this is at. This is the Blue Letter Bible, right? This is one of the accepted authorities by Bible folks, right? Bible scholars swear by the Blue Letter Bible.org website, right? And here it tells you the Hebrew nesher, meaning to tear with the beak, is almost invariably translated eagle throughout the Bible. Yet many of the most important references compel the admission that the bird to which they applied was a vulture. Now, we don't need to read over all of these different references, right? What we need to know is what's important. What's important is this guy. Right? The Blue Letter Bible just explained to us it's a vulture. And where do we see that vulture? Where do we see that vulture? Where do we see that vulture? This is the part of the video where you hit the Cash App. And if you hit the Cash App already, hit the Cash App again.
Charles to get more than that interview. Oh Lord, that's crazy.
I done got 40,000 for an interview.
Damn.
I went to California last year. Right after the BET Awards, man. I was 40,000. Nigga, I did a 8-hour interview.
Faith and love, love and faith, faith and love, love.
This is important because it's a couple of things here that we need to pay attention to, right? So A, if you don't do this research, right, from a scientific lens, right? You never get to this point. And so some things is layered before you get to the science. So if you don't know that when the Bible says eagle, it's actually talking about vultures. You're locked way out of the knowledge. You can forget about it. You way, right? You're locked way out of the knowledge, right? Because again, you don't see with your eyes, you don't hear with your ears, you see and you hear with your mind. So the first thing is you have to learn the eagle is talking about the vulture. Okay, cool. Then you have to figure out the mystery of the vulture. Why is the vulture special? Why is the vulture special? Right? Why is, listen to this. Ask yourself, and people have asked this, right? Shout out to Natural Tahuti. All right, I can't have this conversation without shouting out Natural Tahuti, right? But think about this. The mother is always missing from the biblical story, right? You got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? It's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? Well, this is the mother. This is the mother. This is the mother right here. This is the mother. This is the mother right here. So for all of the queens, the empresses, the female pharaohs, the Ta-Hemet Nesus, right? The vulture occupied a special place in Kemet and is disguised in the Bible as the eagle. But this is the Holy Mother. This is the Holy Mother. And look, let me see what we can make this big. Look. You see what she got right there? She's carrying the shin, right? She's carrying the shin. We don't really pay attention to that part. And our Kemetic scholars, right? They dumb. Their legacy is destroyed. Them niggas is dumb. Can't pussyfoot around it no more. Sorry, but I know y'all partial to Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Leonard Jeffries. Listen, that's why I'm writing books. I don't want my legacy to be destroyed because the only one left to tell my story is some dumb geek squad. No, that's not what we're doing. Right? I can't leave that up to chance. I can't leave that up to chance. Right? But when we look at this, right, we know that the Eye of Heru is a reference to the brain. Right? Even if y'all still think that the Eye of Heru represents the third eye, which is the pineal gland, which I hope that you guys have moved on from that. Okay? It's no third eye. First of all, your pineal gland is a third ear. It's not a third eye. That's number one. And number two, the Eye of Heru is referencing the ventricle system, the cerebral plasma fluid, the ventricle system. And yes, they knew about cerebral spinal fluid. Let me show you something. They knew about cerebral spinal fluid. Right? So when you see that shin, know that that shin carries the ogdode or the kamenu, right? The 4 sets of twins, they're carried inside that shin, right? But I want to show you something so you know that they knew about the cerebral spinal fluid. You see that? Fluid in the interior of the head. Fluid in the interior of the head here. Fluid in the interior of the head. Fluid in the interior of the head. That is cerebral spinal fluid. So we gotta stay focused, right? The shin. Now, what are we talking about here? Horizontal gene transfer. This is how the dominant genes spread all over the world. Your dominant genes are shared all throughout the animal kingdom. This is how you're picking up genetic material from across species. You're not just picking up genetic material, you're also sharing genetic material, right? Now, here in this picture, you see the mother goddess, right? Nekebet, right? The vulture, the mother goddess, right? Giving rise with this shin to the brain structure, right? Now, we're gonna make some. Hold on now. We're gonna cook a little bit. We're gonna cook a little bit. Hold on. We're gonna cook a little bit. Hold on. Let me show you something. Right? I'm gonna find something specifically. Okay, because we go through a lot of the science of the brain and blah blah blah. Yeah, you got to get the book for all of this. We can't even do all this right now. There's too much in this book. There is too much in this book, but I do want to go here. Horizontal transfer of transposable elements is an important process shaping eukaryotic genomes, yet very few studies have quantified this phenomena on a large scale or have evaluated the selective constraints acting on transposable elements during vertical and horizontal transmission. Here we screen 307 vertebrate genomes and infer a minimum of 975, blah, 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 blah. Why is this important? Because I'm showing you the science. I'm showing you the science. Right? This is how the dead rise up. This is how the dead rise up and live again. That's literally what the science teaches us. Now, I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to give you another one. Right? Because we're going to show. Okay. You got horizontal gene transfer. Shaping genomes. Right? Now, we're going to do this. Hold on. Now we're going to do this. Let's go over here to the aorta real quick. As the largest artery, the aorta extends all the way from the heart in your chest all the way down to your pelvis, passing through the abdomen along the way. Sometimes this results in a persistent pulsing sensation that may be caused by abdominal aortic aneurysm. Okay, hold on. That's not what we're looking for, right? The brain lacks a traditional lymphatic system for metabolite clearance. The existence of a glymphatic system where metabolites are removed from the brain's extracellular space by convective exchange between interstitial fluid and cerebrospinal fluid along the paravascular spaces around cerebral blood vessels has been controversial. While recent work has shown clear evidence of directional flow in cerebral spinal fluid in the paraventricular spaces in anesthetized mice, the thriving force for the observed fluid flow remains elusive. The heartbeat-driven peristaltic pulsation of the arteries has been proposed as a probable driver of directed cerebral spinal flow. I want y'all to understand what we just read here. The aorta is the largest artery. The artery pumping, because your arteries are smooth muscle tissue. The arteries pumping is what controls the cerebral spinal flow. So now we have the aorta responsible for also your most crucial brain activity. So I know with that, you got a lot of debunking Dr. EnQi to do. And a lot of coincidences to flag your hand at. The Bible talking about eagles is really talking about vultures, right? We got to figure that out. The Bible talking about eagles is really talking about vultures. And is the vulture carrying the shin? Is that really indicating horizontal gene transfer? Well, let's say this. Horizontal gene transfer is literally the science of how flying DNA and RNA get put into your, people's, it gets shared amongst the masses of animals, and how that shared genetic material becomes a part of your genetic material. So we talking about the vulture flying around the genetic material. It just blowing in the wind, Coriolis effect. Horizontal gene transfer is about flying genetic material and how that influences animals, growth and development. We also have the same idea, the same motif of the mother goddess, the vulture, with the shin in her claws, clasping, flying that around. Now, the scientific journals tells us today, specifically, not only is our DNA influenced by this, but our brains are. Our personas, our personalities. And then we have this. And then we have this. Right? And we can talk about, well, you know what? I'll leave that for another time. So hit the Cash App, go to the website, get your kits, your detoxes, right? Hit the website, get your kits, your detoxes. Make sure you sign up for the paid Patreon. Hit the Cash App. Do the things to support the movement. It depends on you, so we can keep this thing going. Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin to study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thanks in advance.
Peace to the family. This is Abdul Ali, candidate for U.S. House District 12 here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's just be real, folks. The Democrats have destroyed our major cities. Their policies